The Lightning Wraiths are a loyalist Space Marine chapter founded in the 37th millennium during the 23rd Sentinel founding. As a successor chapter to the White Scars and in homage to their genetic legacy, the Lightning Wraiths have adopted some of the White Scars traditions and combat doctrine. They were created in response to an increase in chaos activity in Segmentum Obscurus. Kugal Khan, the founder and first chapter master, had forged his chapter to effectively combat chaos warriors and cultists, especially Cornate worshippers, as penance for a failure that had cost him his honor and the life of his mentor. A chapter born from shame, hate and vengeance, the Lightning Wraiths are a reclusive chapter that issues the pursuit of glory, prestige or recognition. Their introverted disposition also results in their apparent autonomy from the Imperium, as the chapter rarely communicates to those outside their circle of trust. It is a widely accepted fact that very few gain the favor and the trust of these scions of the Khan. Many of their traditions are taken from their feudal homeworld Marozhная, most of which derive from the Order of Breyers, an alliance of Marozhnan kingdoms that dissolved when the kingdoms that made up the Order were destroyed during a brutal war, where an exploratory force of the newly founded chapter fought with the Order against the rest of Marozhная. All that remains from the Order are savage tribes scattered on the eternal winter plains of Marozhная. From the aspirants to the chapter master, otherwise known as preceptor, every Lightning Wraith has spent a year living amongst the populace to learn the many proud traditions and histories of Marozhная, especially the ways of the remnants of the Order of Breyers. Although they recruit from many worlds, each Lightning Wraith is expected to spend time with the locals of Marozhная during their training to become an Astartes. Marines hailing from the chapter are taciturn individuals, speaking only when the situation requires clear and concise communication. Even then, they speak very little to those who are not of the Lightning Wraiths. The only exception to their introverted attitudes are the White Scars, as the Lightning Wraiths are fanatically loyal to their forefathers and children, as a deep paternal instinct that was never removed from psycho-indoctrination compels them to protect the next generation at all costs. However, in the fields of battle, the normally introverted Marines turn into savages fueled by their undying rage. Although they avoid direct confrontations, the savagery within the Lightning Wraiths directs them to the heart of an enemy flank, leaving a bloody swathe as they cut down anything that was too slow to react to their advance. At the end of a battle or campaign, they are the last ones to leave, as their warrior code demands the total annihilation of an enemy, and their scholarly nature prompts them to educate the surviving human populace in a plethora of subjects that directly benefit both the planet and the Imperium as a whole. The hunt for enemy survivors is also an opportunity for them to scavenge any equipment that can be of use to the chapter and would modify it to suit their needs if necessary, whilst their self-assigned duty of educating the survivors also allows them to aid in any funeral rites, as the chapter ethos places great respect towards the dead. As a known Codex-compliant chapter, the Lightning Wraiths believe the Codex Astartes to be too rigid and too constraining. While they do not despise the Codex, seeing as the wisdom of a Primarch as renowned as Robuta Guilliman warrants attention, their blatant disregard for the word of Guilliman has gained the ire of devout practitioners of the Codex, such as the Hammers of Dawn. Their lack of compliance with the Codex has resulted in disagreements between Lightning Wraith captains, otherwise known as Viceroys, and other chapters in response to various threats to humanity. To them, waging war is akin to traversing the waves of an ocean during a storm, as one cannot completely predict every single situation and outcome. To blindly follow the words of a book, despite being written by a Primarch, is to neglect the subtle lessons that each battle teaches a warrior. They believe that the best strategies stem from long years of experience, and the insight a veteran provides in the chaotic dance of war is just as good as any passage in the Book of Guilliman. Part of the reason why they do not comply with the Codex Astartes is due to their preferred style of warfare. The Lightning Wraiths combine the Raven Guard's stealth-based tactics and the White Scars hit-and-run tactics to great effect. The core of their combat doctrine revolves in the brutal and explosive exploitation of an enemy's weakness in a manner such that the enemy is unable to retaliate from the Lightning Wraith's sudden emergence and the ferocity of the subsequent assault. As their combat doctrine is a combination of speed and stealth, the chapter shuns the usage of Devastator squads or armored vehicles. The lack of armored vehicles such as the Predator and Land Raider would have substantially decreased the effectiveness of the chapter against the heavier equipment or heavily defended positions. This shortcoming was mitigated by the expansive air force. A part of their armory also includes equipment taken from abandoned battlefields and repurposed for Astartes' use. The possession of these controversial weapons was the chapter's saving grace during their first encounter with the Tyranid menace. As of the 42nd millennium, the chapter is currently recovering from the near decimation of 2 battle companies, otherwise known as Pillars of Wisdom, during the expansion of the Eye of Terror into the Cicatrix Maledictum. Massive warp storms had appeared after the fall of Cadia, and the fleet containing the 5th Pillar of Wisdom was begotten with misfortune, as one such warp storm coalesced on its flight path as it withdrew from a disastrous and costly campaign against the Tyranids. When the fleet was forced to return to real space, the 2nd Pillar of Wisdom's fleet was close enough to receive some of the survivors of the 5th, but it too had suffered losses in its attempt to rescue some of their brothers as an undetected Nightlord's fleet attacked the Lightning Wraiths. The arrival of Primaris reinforcements have slowly filled the gaps left by the deceased Marines within the Pillars of Wisdom. Rather than having 10 companies of a Codex-compliant chapter, the Lightning Wraiths have 9 irregularly sized companies to which they refer to as Pillars of Wisdom, as tribute for the 9 virtues that the 9 monarchs of the Order of Braius upheld during the Marozhnian uprising. Each of the companies represent a virtue, and each viceroy is given a duty that coincides with said virtue. The first Pillar of Wisdom, Virtue of Perseverance, upheld by the Kingdom of Kashai, led by the Preceptor, the Lightning Wraith's chapter master, who acts as the regent of Marozhnia, consists of 80 veteran Astartes, otherwise known as the Sipahi. The second Pillar of Wisdom, Virtue of Diligence, upheld by the Shulga Empire. Its viceroy, captain, is given the title Warden of the Crypt, and is tasked with the maintenance and defenses of the chapter's fortress ministry, the Crypt of Braius. Battle company consists of 100 Astartes. The third Pillar of Wisdom, Virtue of Self-Reliance, upheld by the Duchy of Polsta. Its viceroy is given the title Warden of the Logistium and is tasked with the day-to-day logistics of the chapter, as well as overseeing chapter deployments. Battle company consists of 100 Astartes. The fourth Pillar of Wisdom, Virtue of Hospitality, upheld by the Alec Massar Caliphate. Its viceroy is given the title Warden of the Fleet and is tasked with command of the chapter fleet and the logistics regarding the void defenses of Marozhnia. Battle company consists of 100 Astartes. The fifth Pillar of Wisdom, Virtue of Discipline, upheld by Clan Utiug Krov. Its viceroy is given the title Warden of Desolation and is in charge of the chapter's armories. He also works with the Koval, the chapter's master of the forge, in maintaining the chapter's relics. Battle company consists of 100 Astartes. The sixth Pillar of Wisdom, Virtue of Fidelity or Loyalty, upheld by the tribes of Vosaka. Its viceroy is given the title of Warden of Faith and is given the task of recording and preserving the chapter's history and traditions. He works closely with the Farshon, the Lightning Wraith's equivalent to the Reclusium and Apothecarian. Reserve company consists of 150 Astartes. The seventh Pillar of Wisdom, Virtue of Honor, upheld by the Umfazir Kingdom. Its viceroy is given the title of Warden of the Skies and is given the task of maintaining the chapter's expansive air force. He is also the de facto representative of the chapter during visits to the Forge World Nyvira. Reserve company consists of 150 Astartes. The eighth Pillar of Wisdom, Virtue of Sincerity, upheld by the Republic of Kaital Shun. Its viceroy is given the title of Warden of Whispers and is the field commander of any reconnaissance or assassination missions. He works closely with the Warden of Shadows and may exchange roles. Scout company consists of 110 scouts and fully fledged battle brothers. The ninth Pillar of Wisdom, Virtue of Valiance or Courage, upheld by the Shekfialtra Empire. Its viceroy is given the title of Warden of Shadows and is responsible for the training and recruitment of neophytes into the chapter. He works closely with the Warden of Whispers and may exchange roles. Scout company consists of 110 scouts and fully fledged battle brothers. The Lightning Wraiths prefer to either deal with their enemies in one fell swoop as fast as possible or to whittle them down with hit-and-run tactics accompanied with sabotage. As such, they do not have any Devastator squads or armored land vehicles in their arsenal. The heavy equipment would not only struggle to keep up with the insane speeds that the Lightning Wraiths conduct their attacks, but would also slow down the speed of an assault. To compensate for this loss of firepower, the Lightning Wraiths have an extensive and large air force at their disposal. Aerial superiority is a crucial component of any Lightning Wraith strategy, because without their air force, they do not have enough firepower to deal with opponents that are too numerous or too sturdy. A larger than normal amount of Stormhawk interceptors ensures that any enemy aircraft that dare to patrol the skies are erased from existence, while Storm Talons whittle down anti-air batteries and vehicles in order for the chapter's Thunderhawks and Storm Ravens to unload their precious cargo of warriors before demolishing the enemy with strafing runs. The presence of long-lost aircraft, which are created from the forges of Naerina thanks to the STC that the chapter managed to recover, such as Xiphon Interceptor, Storm Eagle and Fire Raptor, lends further credence to the chapter's reliance on air superiority. Furthermore, they have 2 scout companies so that intelligence gathered regarding the enemy's forces will be more extensive and detailed. This also allows more sabotage ops to be executed by the scouts to weaken the enemy infrastructure. The higher number of scouts is necessary, as there are times that the enemy has total aerial superiority, and successful infiltration or sabotage is the fulcrum in which the tide of battle will turn to the Lightning Wraith's favor, without the chapter having to resort to brutal force or attrition. Jaegers, Astartes that have earned their black carapace but refuse to leave the scout companies, are an integral part of the scout companies and of the chapter as a whole. If knowledge of the enemy officer's location reaches the chapter's forces, Jaegers are deployed instead of scouts to hunt down and eliminate the enemy's command structure, as these fully fledged Astartes are specialized in both training and equipment in decapitation strikes. Unlike scouts, Jaegers have a higher chance of survival if they are prematurely discovered and can brute force their way to enemy command if necessary. If an enemy's defenses are too secure for a Lightning Wraith's assault, whether aerial or ground, they either cut off the enemy's resources and wait for them to destroy themselves from within, or attack from the underground with the usage of the Hades breaching drill, which are piloted by chapter serfs. Either method would result in the enemy being destroyed from within, whether from the madness and desperation of the populace or through the wrathful and swift destruction wrought by Astartes at their fortress's heart. No enemy has the right to survive in the eyes of these Knights of the Calm. Total destruction is their only sentence, both for their crimes of treason and to ensure that their ways of warfare are known to few. However, when the Lightning Wraiths are forced to be on the defensive, an additional facet of Marozhnian doctrine is implemented to their usual hit-and-run tactics. If an objective has to be held, the Lightning Wraiths would construct expansive and interconnecting underground tunnel networks around the mission area. A total far cry from their usual tactics, but a viable strategy that was perfected through combat simulations held underneath the tunnels of the mountains of Marozhnia. These tunnels would be heavily guarded, filled with traps or dead ends, and designed to confuse those who dare to use them. Above ground, inconspicuously hidden entrances and foxholes are placed near allied fortifications, as well as potential choke points or weak points. Some of these entrances are false openings that lead the enemy away from the main objective and towards deadly traps. These tunnels are a great boon to those who aid the Lightning Wraiths with the defense of an objective, as they are able to move from one place to another in comparative safety. Granted, they would need a Lightning Wraith Astartes or serve to act as a guide so that they would not get lost or accidentally trigger a trap. As successors of the White Scars, the gene seed of the Lightning Wraiths was initially found to be stable and free of aberrations, save for the underlying curse that every scion of Jagatai suffers from. However, a century after the gene seed was implanted into the first Lightning Wraith neophyte, mutations began to surface. The first mutation that was spotted is currently known as the Wraith's Flesh. A battle brother afflicted with this mutation would suffer an aggressive form of dermal atrophy, coupled with significantly brighter arteries that can be seen from a distance. Dissection conducted by chapter vicars found that this mutation was caused by defects in the melanchromic organ. There is speculation that this mutation is a result of the planet barely receiving any sunlight from the planet's sun due to the nigh-constant overcast that plagues Marozhnia. This resulted in very low amounts of melanin in a Marozhnian native's body. Due to this, a marine's skin is exponentially more sensitive to UV radiation than a normal human when in sunlight, which thins or burns the skin at an accelerated rate. This forces the marine to constantly wear his helmet when in sunlight. Further investigation by Vickers revealed that the fully functional Hemasamen boosted an existing evolutionary trait from the inhabitants of Morozhnia. The mortals of the world are accustomed to traversing the abundant mountain peaks without any specialized equipment, thus their blood has higher hemoglobin levels than an average human. As such, the Astartes of the Lightning Wraiths have exceptionally high hemoglobin in their blood, much higher than a regular Astartes, which resulted in their blood being a very bright shade of red. The second mutation appeared roughly after 150 years since the implantation of gene seed upon the first generation of Lightning Wraiths. Commonly known as the Wraith's sight, those who have been stricken by this mutation gain increased sensitivity to bright light due to an hyperactive oculobe, to the point that the Astartes afflicted are required to constantly wear their helmets lest they are blinded. The afflicted also gain a form of heat vision when in total darkness, where the temperature of objects can be estimated based on how brightly they glow through the eyes of those with the Wraith's sight. This is also accompanied by the iris and pupil losing their hue, resulting in a milky white eye. Precursors to this mutation are uncontrollable tears of blood leaking from the marine's tear ducts. Like the Wraith's flesh, the Wraith's sight is a boost of an existing evolutionary trait of the Morozhnia natives. The constant overcast of Morozhnia, coupled with the extensive cave and tunnel systems, made the inhabitants of the frozen world have an increased sensitivity towards light. The combination of these two mutations gives the Astartes an appearance worthy of his namesake. The deathly pallor coupled with the pure white eyes makes the warriors of the chapter seem that they are undead deliverers of imperial retribution. This is capitalized by the 8th and 9th pillars of wisdom, as the psychological advantage of their appearance reduces the morale of any enemy caught in an ambush. The Cartif squads that have been recently adopted into the chapter's ranks also seem to maximize the effectiveness of these mutations to destroy the will of the enemy before the shots are even fired. Their unnatural appearance has also given birth to a rumor that the Magisters of the Lightning Wraiths are necromancers that use the bodies of their fallen as a means to bolster their ranks. One belief of the chapter is that their true purpose is to teach and be taught. As teachers, they're the ones who will enlighten the lost and ignorant empires of humanity. It is their duty to introduce the lost empire to the Imperium's vast empire and to enrapture them with historical tales of glory, sacrifice and duty. The chapter sometimes acts as a catalyst for technological and scientific growth of a feudal civilization through discrete means, such as conveniently placed blueprints or notes regarding physics and chemistry. Feral worlds are typically left alone as they act as recruitment wells for the Lightning Wraiths. Some of the warriors who are too wounded to return to service may also venture through a planet to teach the illiterate how to read and write. The Blood Raven's adage, "knowledge is power," is adopted by the chapter, and with this adage, the Lightning Wraiths believe that they are strengthening the Imperium by spreading knowledge to those who are severely deprived of it. As students, each Lightning Wraith studies history, psychology, diplomacy, various dialects of Low Gothic, and many other facets regarding the lives of mortals in order to gain insight on both ally and potential foe. Any and all information regarding Xenos foes is gathered in order to be exploited prior to deployment. Each Astartes bearing the insignia of the Lightning Wraiths has the virtue of humility molded into his psyche, as knowledge cannot be attained through pride and stubbornness. Knowledge from Xenos mouths and texts are always taken with suspicion, but utilized nonetheless if it means to serve the Imperium. Furthermore, while the chapter only has good relations with the White Scars, information from the mouths of older warriors, regardless of chapter, is taken out of respect. They may even interact with the planet's populace to learn about popular myths and folktales to understand their culture, both from a tactical standpoint and an academic standpoint. Great libraries filled with tomes and literary works are defended with fanatical zeal, as the loss of knowledge is anathema to the Lightning Wraiths. In fact, before the agri-world Lyco was besieged by a Leviathan splinter fleet, the total sum of the planet's agricultural records and historical records, as well as numerous samples of the produce that was exported from the world, were preserved in one of the planet's strongholds. The almost fanatical drive for the preservation of knowledge is most noticeable in the position of Yakugo, the chapter champion. Every reincarnation of Yakugo is both a teacher and student of the martial art required to wield the twin-blade relic weapon. The hypnotic battle technique is only known to the previous Yakugo and the serfs that he taught. At the death of a Yakugo, a new one is inducted through a vote by the Cabal of Kugel. This warrior would then be taught by the previous Yakugo serfs, whom are typically aspirants that could not become Astartes due to their bodies rejecting the gene seed and known as the Blade Keepers, as per the chapter's traditions. If he refuses the tutelage of the Blade Keepers, he commits an unforgivable sin of pride and consequently disrespects the legacy of his predecessor by doubting the validity of the knowledge that he bestowed upon his servants. This disgraced Yakugo-to-be would then be interred into the Forsworn, and another would be chosen to take his place. If he accepts, then at the end of his training, the new Yakugo would be expected to take a new generation of Blade Keepers under his wing and impart his knowledge onto them under an oath of secrecy. Due to this belief of the importance of knowledge, every Lightning Wraith is an accomplished scholar. Prior to any deployment, a strike force will scout Imperial records to gain information on the opponents that they will exterminate and on the land they will fight in. Topographical charts, historical records, battle reports, xenobiological data, and psychological profiles are some of the many mines of information that a strike force will gather from in order to better prepare themselves. In the case of a defensive campaign, the Lightning Wraiths will endeavor to learn every secret that a planet may hold in so that any potential points of exploitation will be dealt with or utilized as a trap. However, this also results in a slower deployment as the chapter is quite reluctant to deploy troops if there are too many unknowns or if not enough information can be gathered. One result of the chapter's expansive grasp on history is that they have gained a dour outlook on humanity's future, seeing as the race will never achieve its former greatness due to the self-serving interests within many souls. In fact, the chapter believes that the race is dying and the warriors of the Imperium are the only things that are delaying the incoming extermination of humanity. Most mortals are perceived to have this self-serving mindset, regardless of their importance to the Imperium as a whole. This belief of humanity's inherent selfishness stems from Kugelkan's early distrust of the Chogorians and the death cults of Marozhnia. Despite their pessimism and nihilism, the Lightning Wraiths refuse to ignore any calls of aid and are always amongst the first ones to respond to any distress signals within Segmentum Obscurus. While they are not as humanitarian as some chapters, the Lightning Wraiths actively choose assignments that would ensure the safety of mortals. The chosen assignments often require the Astartes to act as bait or a diversionary assault force to give other chapters or Imperial forces time to assist civilian evacuation. Lightning Wraith Hussars and Magyars, the chapter's designation for assault and attack bug squads respectively, have also been known to volunteer themselves as outriders and scouts of an escort convoy to intercept any enemy forces that intend to attack the defenseless. They are also surprisingly very protective of children. Time with Marozhnian natives had reinforced the paternal instincts within the Lightning Wraith's ethos. Any child that dared to approach the Lightning Wraith is met with warmth and wisdom instead of the unwelcoming silence that is typically associated with these warriors. They go to great lengths to save children from any threat that looms over a world and consider the young as priorities whenever a planetary evacuation has to be made. To voluntarily harm a child, whether directly or indirectly, would gain the ire of the chapter. A battle brother hailing from the Lightning Wraiths is clad in dark bone-white armor with blood-red pauldron trims and a black backpack. The bone-white armor and blood-red trims are a reminder of their belief that they are dead men walking, while the black backpack is a representation of the Astartes' burden and duty to protect the Imperium from threats within and without. Their right arm is painted in pure white from pauldron to finger in homage to their gene-sire. Companies are designated with red vein-like lines that are painted onto various body parts in reminiscence to their genetic mutations. Battle company markings are painted on sections of the upper body, either on their arms, the cuirass, or the head. Each of the two reserve companies has their markings painted on one leg, from femur to ankle. As they are successors to the White Scars, they have adopted squad specialty and squad number markings. The squad number is marked on the left polane with White Scar symbology, and the squad specialty markings are from that of the White Scar Legion. Sergeants, referred to as a cabas, are distinguished by a black ring around the squad specialty markings, and lieutenants, who are referred to as hetmans, are distinguished by 2 black rings. Veterans of the first pillar of wisdom are set apart from their battle brothers through a pitch-black helm and a black, tattered, hooded robe, a tribute to the exiled Morozhnian knights of their namesakes, the Sipahi. Viceroys, who are chosen among the ranks of veterans, are distinguished by a blood-red ring around the squad specialty marking of the chapter insignia. The 2 scout companies are encouraged to utilize camouflage on their armor and tunics. Jägers, Astartes that have earned their black carapace but refuse to leave the scout companies, are distinguished by a pitch-black service stud above their right eye. To distinguish between scout companies, either a red handprint or a black one is painted on their faces and helmets for the 8th and 9th pillar of wisdom, respectively. The chapter's insignia is that of a 5-pronged crown made of black iron over a field of bone white. It is the image of the crown of the Old Kings, one of the chapter's oldest and most revered relics. Scout companies do not have the badge displayed on their armor, as it is believed that as hunters they belong to nobody but themselves. It represents the freedom the members of the company will have before they are thrust into a lifetime of servitude as a part of the chapter's reserve and battle companies. Furthermore, because scouts are encouraged to wear camouflage and tasked with infiltration ops, the lack of a chapter badge would stir confusion and paranoia amongst the enemy, as those who are familiar with Astartes would know which chapter would be attacking. The Forsworn, Marines who have committed a great sin, also do not have a badge on their armor, but for an entirely different reason. These Marines have shamed their chapter, and as such do not have the right of calling themselves as lightning wraiths, and have been given a chance to redeem themselves. Besides a death on the battlefield, it is only through great deeds of courage and selflessness does one of the Forsworn regain the right to call himself a lightning wraith.